In this video, I will be presenting my top 3 reads of 2023, and I'll also be mentioning my 5-star reads. Think of me as a love child of Shakespeare and a caffeine-fueled typewriter. Me, I'm Jim. This is my channel, books, reading, and stuff. Happy Christmas. I know it's not 25th of December. This is the 7th of January. 7th of January in Georgia, where I live, the country, with the flag there, not the US state. Christmas is today, the 7th of January. It's not the big celebration it is in the West. Here the big celebration is for New Year's Eve, 31st of December on to 1st of January, when the children get their presents and lots of fireworks and parties ensue. So without further ado, let's dive into the literary whirlpool of my top 3 reads of 2023. Grab your reading glasses, your favourite snacks, and possibly a life vest, because we're about to embark on a literary journey that might just have you questioning reality, wondering if you've accidentally stepped into a parallel bookish universe. I read 100 books in 2023, as anybody who's followed this channel will know. That was my Goodreads target, and it seemed rather ambitious, but I actually managed to do it, finishing the 100th book on the 31st of December. I was quite pleased with that. And of the 100 books, I rated 32 of them 5 stars. So selecting the top 3 from those is quite a tricky task. Almost all the books that I read, I put up a 1-minute review of. So if you're interested in any particular book, you can see my review of that. The average rating for books, I'm told, is 4.2, which seems quite generous, but these days I'm freer about DNFing a book. If it doesn't agree with me, I'll DNF it. So there were no 1-star reviews, 1 2-star review, which I'll talk about a little later. But most of the books I read were 4 stars, but there were, as I said, 32 5-star reads. The first book I finished in 2023 was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, which was my first 5-star read as well. It's a very good book, but it's not in my top 3. Other 5-star reads from the first 20 books were Vicious by V. Schwab, who's in my top 10 favourite authors, Sparkling Cyanide, a classic Agatha Christie mystery, Stalin, The Court of the Red Tsar. This was the longest book I read in 2023. I read it during March, The Time of the Mammoths. It was 850 pages by Simon Sebag Montefiore. And another 5-star read was The Death on the Nile, another Agatha Christie mystery. One Moonlit Night by Caradog Pritchard, which is a book translated into English from Welsh, which was a delightful 5-star read. And Goodnight, Mr. Tom. This was chosen by the FOMO Book Club. The FOMO Book Club is run by Alice of Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, Gemma of Gem of the Books, and Jack of Spread Book Joy. And every 2 months they choose 1 book to read. The current book is Tipping the Velvet, which I've already read, which was another 5-star read. In the second 20 books I finished in 2023, there were just 4 5-star reads. These were Jamaica Inn, another choice of the FOMO Book Club, The Housemaid, my first book I read by Frida McFadden, and I like her twisty novels, The Blind Assassin. In my top 3, I won't be including rereads. This was a reread for me, Margaret Atwood, because this will probably be in the top 3. And Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. Jamaica Inn. Stood alone in glory, foursquare to the winds. Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier is my number 2 pick from the year. The story begins with echoes of Dracula, with a carriage rattling through a desolate landscape in wild weather to a place shunned by locals, a place notorious for shady activities. The carriage passenger is Mary Yelland, who has recently lost her mother and is going to stay with her aunt. The landlord of the pub is a hulking brute of a man, Joss Merley, who reminds me a little of Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights, and the fact that the inn is surrounded by desolate moors with terrible weather, and it's set in the early 19th century, also reminds me of Wuthering Heights, but this was more of a page-turner than Wuthering Heights ever has been. In the third 20 books of 2023, there were five-star reads. On the image, you don't see this one. On the gallows, this is not a 5-star read, but Goodreads doesn't have an image of this. This is what the book looks like. It's by Ilya Chapchavadze. It's in English and in Georgian. But the 5-star reads were And Tango Makes Three, which was one of the most banned books ever. It's a lovely tale about these two male penguins who adopt a penguin chick and raise it, but this obviously causes problems for some people, particularly those in Florida for some reason. Maybe because they don't have penguins in Florida, it's too warm. And Silent Bones by Rachel Lynch. This I read as an e-arc from NetGalley, and it was the first Rachel Lynch I read. And then I went on to read another 3 Rachel Lynches. These are police procedurals set in a Lake District with D.I. Kelly Porter, and these are really good if you like police procedurals. Then City, Clifford D. Seamack. This was another reread for me. There were quite a few rereads this year, which is unusual. Before this year, I rarely reread anything. Sudden Death, another Rachel Lynch, and Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This was a fantastic book. This was Goodreads' choice for fiction in 2022. I'm not a gamer, but I love this book about 2 socially awkward gamers, game designers, Sam and Sadie, and their friendship. The book spans 20 years from their adolescence when they meet in a hospital. Sam is there because he's had a bad accident in which his mother died and he's damaged his leg. And Sadie is there because her sister has cancer, and they meet in the hospital and form an awkward friendship, bonding over computer games. And Sam and Sadie are both lovable and arrogant, infuriating and very much flawed. The dynamics of their friendship are complicated by love, jealousy and misunderstandings. The POV alternates from one to the other. What's a game, Mark said. It's tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. It's the possibility of infinite rebirth, infinite redemption. I'm sure gamers will pick up on the references to the various games, which I miss, but you really don't have to be a gamer to love this. And this is my number 3 pick. The fourth 20 books of 2023 saw 9 5-star reads. First of which was Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, the Stephen King novella. And I didn't read this from a book. I listened to this on YouTube. It was presented, the narration by Scully's House of Thrillers, with Scully along with 6 other voice actors, narrated for 2.5 hours, the Shawshank Redemption, and this was amazing. Their voices were very good. They also used music, they used ASMR sound effects, they used lots of graphic images to illustrate the story, and it was an experience, and I'll link to the video in the show notes below. And there was A Gathering of Shadows, continuing the Colour of Magic trilogy by V. Schwab. The Adventure of the Copper Beeches, this was a short Sherlock Holmes story. The Co-Worker, another Frida McFadden thriller. Sea Prayer by Khaled Hosseini, who's another of my top 10 favourite authors. A Conjuring of Light, which concluded the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V. Schwab. I loved the whole trilogy. A Scandal in Bohemia, another Sherlock Holmes tale. Savage Skies by Kat Ross, and The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. Last year, my top #1 book was Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield, which was an amazing read. This was also an amazing read, and this was a choice at the FOMO Book Club, but didn't quite make my top 3. Also, amongst these was my worst read, which I finished 2023, which was this one, Rafflesia by Alice Dodgson. Alice Dodgson's just a pseudonym. I think I'd have a pseudonym if I wrote this. This was poor. It's romance set in Paris, but it's not a healthy romance. And the title, Rafflesia, this is the biggest flower in the world and it smells like rotting flesh. And the reason it's called this is revealed at the end. I won't spoil why, but it doesn't make any sense. And now the final 20 books I read in 2023, I finished in 2023, and amongst these are seven 5-star reads for me. And one of these is my top read of the year. Can you guess which one it is? First, there was Jade City by Fonda Lee. This was fantasy with gangster elements set in a East Asian city, something like Hong Kong, but not Hong Kong. We have always lived in the castle. This was another FOMO choice. This was a choice for November and December. It was a very unsettling read with a wonderful, unreliable narrator. Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey, about the rewilding of the Cairngorms. Tipping the Velvet, which I've mentioned before, by Sarah Waters, which I've just reviewed. I put out the review yesterday. Metamorphosis, the review's coming out very soon for that, by Franz Kafka. This was another reread. And another reread, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The rereads, as I said, don't count for my top 3. This is one of my all-time favourite books. Emily Bronte is one of my all-time favourite writers, even though this is her only novel. I also like her poems, like Riches I hold in light esteem, and love I laugh to scorn, and lust for fame was but a dream that vanished on the morn, etc. And the final 5-star read was Star Trek The Wounded Sky by Diane Duane, which is the best Star Trek book I've read. I haven't read that many, maybe 4 or 5, but this was fantastic. The humour was good, and there was a lot of philosophy. I'll put out a review for that very shortly. So those were my 5-star reads of 2023. Can you guess which was #1? Can we have a drum roll? My #1 read of 2023 was Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey. It's a thoroughly gripping tale about the rewilding of the Cairngorms by reintroducing wolves. This was successful in Yellowstone Park, and there's this idea to do this in Scotland. It's fiction at the moment, but it could be a good idea. The locals are hostile, as you can imagine, the idea, fearing for their children and for their livestock. Inti, an Australian, is the wolf girl who is in charge of the project. She feels a special empathy for all living creatures. She has this medical condition called mirror touch synesthesia. If she sees an animal or human hurt, she feels the pain herself. The book, it's part ecological thriller, part whodunit, part wildlife adventure. It should come with trigger warnings for domestic abuse and violence against animals. The writing is beautiful, dark and spellbinding. If I could give it 6 stars, I would. That's my favourite read of the year. Thank you for watching. If you've read any of these books, can you let me know in the comments? You can also let me know what your top 3 or top 10 reads of 2023 were. If you enjoyed this video, you can give it a like. This will help me with the YouTube algorithm, and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.